My grandfather went to China in 1937 for 3 months. He saw what the Japanese were doing to the Chinese people. The war started about 5 weeks later. He offered his services to China. Chiang Kai-shek accepted that. And he invited him. He accepted that. And my grandfather really stayed in China for 8 years. And what we need to remember, he stayed because the Japanese were bombing the communists. The Japanese were bombing the KMT. And eventually the Japanese bombed the United States of America. And if we had not all band together, communists, KMT, and Americans, our stories would be very different today.
Because
what a nice book.
So I put, history should never forget those who fought for peace and
of course,
freedom.
And Lee. I told you we have a Chinese section in our library. So I'll be very proud to put this.
1, 2, 3. Okay.
How do we look?
We are women. Is it good?
Oh, that's not bad. That's
it's good.
It's good. 1934, he established an aerobatic act called 3 Men on the Flying Trapeze. And 3 Men on the Flying. And so he says, nobody seemed to realize that far from being a stunt, they were convincing proof that fighters could battle together through the most violent maneuvers of combat. So during this whole time, because they had never used flight formation in combat. They had never used the shoot at them, turn, come back and shoot again. They had never used the tactics in World War I. The tactics were pretty much just fly right at each other. So he was trying to figure out better ways to do combat. And I had a 4-star general at Nellis Air Force Base in Arizona tell me, they said, you cannot reinvent the tactics that he invented. We only adapt them to modern day airplanes because he had it figured out the best way. Now I'm going to let y'all listen to him welcome you.
Welcome to my story of World War II in China. Growing up on a farm in northeast Louisiana, my dream was to fly airplanes. But when I first joined the infantry in World War I, they put me on a horse. After the war, I was able to earn my wings in the Army Air Corps. I loved flying and did so every opportunity I could. I worked hard to serve my country, but my commanding officers rarely agreed with my ideas about aviation and combat. So I retired and accepted an invitation to go to China. I planned to stay a few months, but realized how much the Chinese people needed my help to defend themselves against the Japanese. This exhibit is not just my story. It's a story of the brave Chinese and Americans who worked together to defeat the Japanese. We fought together as brothers, formed relationships that would last our lifetimes. It is my fondest hope that the sign of the Flying Tiger will remain the law, just as long as it is here.
This book is his original logbook. Pilots kept logbooks of their flights. So this is the logbook he kept when he left to go to China to recruit the ABGs. This is the end of 1940, and he arrives in Honolulu November of 1940, and he gets to San Francisco at the beginning of 1941. But he kept this, and in here is some of the notes that he made about visiting some of the different aircraft manufacturing companies to find out which aircraft would be best for China to purchase. And then it made some notes of what he would like to ask for in the men who volunteered to go to China from the Army, Navy, and Marine Corps. President Roosevelt, the Lend-Lease Act for China to purchase the P-40s. And then this is one of the first groups of 30 that left. This is the China Clipper that he wrote on to come home to recruit them. He went to China in '37. They said fighter airplanes weren't going to be needed. Well, he proved the military here wrong, and he was right. Well, they didn't like that. You know, generals don't like to be proven wrong. And then when he came home in 1941 to recruit the American Volunteer Group, he knew the Pentagon, he would never get approval from the generals in the Pentagon. So he went around their back with President Roosevelt. So they really didn't like him then. So when President Roosevelt died, almost as soon as President Truman took over, the Pentagon said, you need to make Chenault come home. So that is why they made him come home when they did. It was Truman that did it because he lost his only friend in China, Roosevelt. And Truman didn't care. I mean, he didn't care. Yeah. You know, he just listened to the guys that were at the Pentagon. He was very highly decorated in the Chinese military. I think this is kind of equivalent, it's almost to our Medal of Honor from what I understand. And these are his American medals. They're not quite as pretty as the Chinese medals. About what he was doing in China from 37 to 41, about building the runways in strategic areas so that, and also recruiting all the Chinese it took to keep filling up the holes that were left by the Japanese bombs. But what's amazing to me, Chen, is the spirit of the Chinese people, that they were willing to do anything, that they never, ever gave up. Yeah. I mean, I want Americans to see that because it's, I think, something that maybe we're lacking here. But in China, there's total devotion. He did a survey of the Chinese Air Force. Chiang Kai-shek thought he had 500 airplanes. My grandfather did the survey, said, you have 500 airplanes, but you have 91 that fly. Chiang Kai-shek almost killed some people over that because he was so angry.
Almost killed Mao Zedong.
He did. General Mao. He did. Over that. But anyway, so this is when he did the journey. But also, I believe this is when he actually saw firsthand what the Japanese were doing to the Chinese people. The constant bombings. Yeah. So, to me, this is one of the most important things that he did right here. I think without this, the war in China would have been lost for both Chinese and Americans, because he set up this early warning system. And he started training, and I know y'all know all about it. He trained hundreds of Chinese how to listen to incoming Japanese airplanes and to send signals.